What's good, everybody, and welcome into the best podcast in the world that pays homage to the 90 Day Fiance franchise. This is 90 Day Our Way with Coach and the Kid. I'm Jonathan Coachman. He is Cody Merrow, and we have so many different franchises within the franchise. So, Cody, this week we're going to be hitting on Happily Ever After, a little bit from the other way, and the new show that I think is fantastic, B90 Strikes Back, where, among other things, we've got Big Ed, who is reading tweets about him and striking back to the fans. I've been waiting for this, and I loved the first episode. How about you?
Oh, I loved it. I mean, anytime we can get Ed interacting with really anybody, I'm tuning in.
I have been trying to reach out to Ed, so anybody that's listening, just to understand that Big Ed is going to be on this podcast. He's going to be on this podcast soon. It's just a matter of booking him. I even tried to buy a cameo video from him. Do you know how much he's charging for cameo videos?
If I were to guess, I'd say $100.
Wow, $95. I was a little shocked by that. I'll be honest. I'm a $40 guy. But I just did my 482nd cameo. So I know that I'm priced right. And that's all in the last year. I've done almost 500 in a year. You've got to have that price right. So I don't know how many Easy Ed or Big Ed is doing, but at $95 a pop, I bet he's doing pretty good. You ready to get started?
I'm ready. Eventually we'll get Big Ed on here, but until then, I think we need to roll into what we call the main event.
I feel you. Let's do it. All right, main event this week, and this is where we have one or two couples that kind of stand out above the crowd. Their storylines to us are the most interesting for this particular week. And my favorite couple, Cody, and for a lot of reasons, but I feel for them. I want them to win. I want them to be successful. And that, of course, is Kenny, who's 57, but looks like he's 27. And then Armando, who's 31, I believe, from Mexico. Kenny's getting ready to move there, leave his 4 kids behind. But in this week's episode, Armando finally had I won't say the guts, but it was the opportunity. It was time. He has to tell his family, his parents. They knew that he was gay, but they hadn't talked about it in over 3 years. And it was heartbreaking to watch this happen as he's telling his mother and father, and his mom did what most mothers would do. She embraced him and said, "I'm your mother. How would you think that I wouldn't understand or embrace your lifestyle?" Then his father, a proud, tough, gritty, grimy Mexican man, looks at his son and says, "I don't know. I just need some time." And I guess as I backed it up a couple of times because I thought to myself, what if that was me? What if that was my father who, and by the way, I have a gay sister, and my parents had to deal with that because she was married for 12 years, just like Armando was married for 8 years.
Wow. And
then she called me and she said, "I need your help telling mom and dad." It went very well for us, but in the Mexican culture, in that culture, I'm anxious to see how they're treated as a couple, and also if they can survive all of that. But to me, this is such a heartbreaking situation to watch somebody who just wants to be him, be his true self, and even his father can't accept it.
Well, and it's terrible because obviously growing up in a matriarchal society like that, those pressures are on him regardless, where even though he was dealing with his own internal struggle of being straight or being gay, wherever he happened to, fall depending on where society kind of dragged him, he always had this pressure that I am, the patriarch of this family. I am the person who is supposed to carry on the bloodline. That's very deep rooted in that culture. And to see him struggle with that, obviously internally, and then have the courage, I think, to be able to come out and put those things out quite literally on the table, I just thought that was so admirable. It was something that really made me kind of tear at my heartstrings sitting on my couch. And I don't have the same personal connection you do, Coach, and thank you for sharing with the audience. But I definitely felt for him on really just a personal level of when he said, when you're someone's son, you should be able to rely solely upon your parents' love if that's all you have. And he didn't feel like he could do that. And to me, that was really the most heartbreaking piece.
Solid. I also felt for him when he said, the reason I haven't talked to you about it, the reason that I haven't brought it up, the reason I've continued to live this way is so people didn't talk about you. So people didn't talk about my parents, and I didn't disrespect the family. That to me is complete BS. It's not disrespect, and I know it's their culture. It shouldn't be that way, but I understand that it is. But to have to deal with that, if I had to think about, and I'm always thinking about not embarrassing my family name, but to have to go that far, to think about my parents being attacked or my parents having to deal with something because of my sexuality is so far out of bounds in my head. It's crazy to me. And that's what he's dealing with. And I understand when he said the first week, which still resonates with me, I once went out late in the desert and I hoped for an animal to come and kill me and eat me so I didn't have to live anymore. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me that he's so far down that that's how he felt? And I hope we all can just pick him back up because he's a good dude. He's a good father, and he's found a good guy in Kenny. So I really hope they make it. I'm really hoping they do because I like him a lot. I like him a lot. All right, so we have a second couple that's made it into our main event this week, and this to me was shocking. So Andres from Moldova, Elizabeth, and apparently in their culture, you have to, in order to have your child baptized, you have to be married in the eyes of the Moldova government or whatever. So last week's episode, we saw the two sisters and Elizabeth breastfeeding openly for 10 minutes. They replayed that this week. And then Andres announces that they're going to have a wedding without talking to her about it, and then says, you need to go talk to your father because he's going to pay for it. It wasn't, could he pay for it? It's, he's going to pay for it. So Elizabeth, she did it. She feels like she is caught in the middle. She goes and she asks her father, and I thought her father was great because he knew it was coming. It was just a matter, are you going to ask me respectfully? Is Andres going to have the guts to come and ask me to my face? So she pulled the ultimate daughter card, didn't she? Here come the waterworks. Here come the tears. And Dad, I don't want you to do this because I'm crying. Dad, I don't want you to do this because I'm getting emotional. He goes, you know what? You knew I was going to pay for this wedding. You knew that I want to see you happy and that there was no way I was not going to do this. But in the same breath, he then said, but Andre should have come and asked me. So here's the part that really irked me. She goes home. She's feeling good about herself. She's getting ready to tell her husband, I did what you asked me to do. She tells him, and Cody, what was the first thing out of his mouth? It wasn't thank you. It was how much? How much is he going to give us? And she says to him, are you really going to ask me that right now? It was offensive. It was selfish. And then he proceeded to say that it could cost anywhere from $15,000 to $50,000. And she said, that's a big gap. He goes, well, if we want to have entertainment and a famous singer, that could cost us 10 or 15 grand, right? A famous singer. We're just having a wedding for a baptism. Who's talking about bringing in boys to men to sing at your wedding in Moldova? I'm not. She's not. So I really felt, and I hope that we see this play out, that he gets called on his stuff because he's very stubborn. And I'm still trying to figure out why she married him in the first place because he has very few redeeming qualities.
Right. And I think the naivety just was so on display there because as we saw in our prior episodes where we were talking about the fact that he had this plan all along and then sprung it upon her family at this dinner thinking, oh, they would just be okay with it. Let's go have this wedding in 5 weeks. That's not how this culture works. And I'm not sure how Moldovan culture works in that way, if that's just the way things are. But to me, there's a lot of naivety that's coming from that side of Andre. And I don't really understand how those things can reconcile, especially with, I mean, her family's going to feel so kind of put out where they're spending this money, they're kind of supporting the couple. At what point is that going to put a lot of unnecessary strain upon what is already a contentious relationship to the point where it might be breaking?
It plays into the issue I have with so many of these couples on 90 Day Fiance, is that they're doing in their minds what a normal person would do. A normal person would not marry somebody from Moldova when you're from the United States or Nigeria or India or any of these other countries. And then they put it on their families that, wait a second, why can't you go to Moldova in 5 weeks? Why wouldn't you want to bring your child or your toddler to a very dangerous country? Why wouldn't you want to do that? they all seem like it's their family's responsibility to support them in this crazy journey to find love. How about we do it a little bit harder here in the United States as opposed to that? That seems to be an underlying theme across these franchises that I can't get over. I would never do that to my parents. Never. Or my family or my friends. But yet they're very entitled, and Elizabeth is right there with them.
Right, and there's just a lot of selfishness that comes with that, and I think you really hit upon some of these character flaws that we see all of these characters having the same, and then we see things where they need to improve that are all the same too, whether it's being accepting of what your spouse wants to do, being in a relationship where you and I both know that relationships are 50-50, and sometimes you have to concede. And oftentimes in these 90-day relationships we see, whether it's a power dynamic, whether it's cultural differences, we do not see 50-50 relationships.
And that, my good friends, is our main event. Okay, it's time for one of my favorite segments that we get to do. We like to call it Come On. Pretty self-explanatory. So my first one this week, and it's not close, Cody, is my main man, Colt. So Colt is on Happily Ever After. He's already been married to a Brazilian who is also on the show. A little crazy. They got divorced. It was a mess. They were always fighting. And so now he's dating a girl named Jess from Brazil, but she lives in Chicago. So he's visiting for a few days. This guy is so controlling, and he is so hard to get along with. I'm trying to figure out how he gets a girlfriend, period, let alone all these Brazilians. And in this particular episode, it's his last night there. He wants just to go back to the hotel and, in his words, just have sex. But she wants to go out and meet up with a bunch of her Brazilian friends, and then after that go to a party. But she wants him to go with him. So it's not like she was abandoning him. And he all of a sudden turns into this jealous, controlling, just ugly on the inside individual, and basically shames her into coming back to the hotel instead of hanging out with her friends. And her friends ask all the right questions, didn't they? They're like, what's the difference between her and your ex-wife? And it's such a mess, he doesn't want to talk about it, and he comes off as very defensive too, and I just didn't like it. And all I kept thinking in my head is, Colt, you got to be better. You got to be better. And the kicker, he lives with mom. And these girls are like, you're 34 years old. Get out of the house.
Well, and I think a big point that you brought up is just that controlling aspect, which is probably what leads him into these types of relationship anyway, where he knows that he has the inherent control at the beginning. He doesn't have to just create these boundaries. They're already there existing. And like you said, when she wanted to go out with her friends and have a good time, she wasn't shutting him out. She wasn't saying, I'm ditching you and going to hang with my friends. She said, this is what I would like to do. I'd like you to come. But because it wasn't what he wanted to do, in his mind, that was him being ditched. So I think that just illuminates a huge psychological flaw and maybe a reason why he's in these relationships. But to me, that control and power dynamic is just never something you want in a relationship.
I think that when you look at a guy like Colt, and I've had a lot of friends like this, and I wish they could look past I think part of the reason he goes with the foreign women is, to your point, they need him for something. And it's very difficult when you have character flaws or personality flaws. And American women, they'll call you out on it. Mm-hmm. And they can walk away. Right. And there's a reason that a lot of these guys go through this pattern of foreign women because of exactly what you're saying. At some point, though, I think we already saw it from Jess, she's like, wait a second, I don't want you to control me. I don't want you to tell me what to do. I want to be with you. I want to be intimate with you. She's giving him everything that he wants. The little tease for next week's episode was basically her visa to live in the States is coming to an end. And she tells him, could we get the K-1 visa, which is something you have to get married. Mm-hmm. And he's like, wait a second, I don't think I want to get married again. And so that's going to be the decision between the two. But at this point, he needs to decide, does he really want to be a boyfriend and or a husband, or do you want to be single for the rest of your life? If he keeps acting this way, he's going to be single. So I say, Colt, you got to listen to me and Cody. Come on, be better. All right, number 2. Oh, Sinjin and Tanya. I don't believe there's ever been a couple in the history of 90 Day Fiance that has fought more than these two fight. My man Sinjin from South Africa, he's one of those fun dudes. He was a bartender at home, and apparently he used to get drunk all the time at work, and he got in trouble, breaking tables, all kinds of things. And now he's trying to get a job in the United States, and he put down his old work. They called South Africa, and a lot of places were like, wait a second, this is what you did when you were bartending? No, you can't work here. She's furious about that. She's furious about the fact that she doesn't have a job. They don't have any money left. I'm trying to figure out what Tanya wants from him. If she doesn't want him to bartend, how does she want him to make quick money, cash, in a very short period of time? I think she's expecting too much from him, but if drinking's an issue, he's got to understand he just can't drink when he's bartending.
Well, and I think another point that you described is the last scenario we talked about was a come on the male side because obviously he was in the wrong. His expectation obviously needs to shift. Here we see it on the other side where while you can't really defend drinking on the job as a bartender or doing these things to make a living, you can defend the fact that he is doing his best. He doesn't have the skills to be able to translate into some office job that she wants him to get. So I think on a certain level, you have to kind of give him not the benefit of the doubt, but a chance, an opportunity to show that he can, if put in the right position, earn money without being a drunk at the bar. I think there's a lot of things that go into that as far as adjusting your expectation whilst we understand your spouse needs to make money, but you need to have a realistic expectation of how they're able to do that, especially if you're going to have circumstances that they have to follow to earn that money. As we saw last week when we talked about Jihoon, obviously the expectation there is don't do illegal things. But at the end of the day, if that's how he knows how to make money, there needs to be some kind of leeway there. And while I'm not advocating for illegal jobs whatsoever, I am saying that we kind of need to be asking ourselves things when asking things of our partners, when we need to kind of have a little bit more understanding. So for that, come on.
Spoiler alert, by the way, Jihoon still doesn't have a job. But Sinjin, to your point, these women that bring the guys over, and then they expect them to make $200,000 or $300,000 a year right off the jump. That to me, it drives me crazy. But also at the same time, a lot of these couples live with their parents, and the parents are like, wait a second, get out. I raised you. You're 25, or these two are 30 years old, and they're just now. And she's got a busted up foot, so she can't work. And it's just a lot of pressure on him. And a lot of people, when they feel pressure or they're in this pandemic, they drink. It's a way to self-medicate yourself. And I also thought it was interesting. And a lot of people, not just foreigners, feel this way right now. He said, I thought coming to America, there'd be jobs everywhere. And apparently that's not the case. Apparently I still have to compete to get these jobs. And I know this was taped before the pandemic started, but it wasn't that long before the pandemic started. And now with 40 million people out of work, or now 35 million, people like him, it's going to be even harder. Because if you have a South African walk in or an American, naturally the American would probably get the job just because. So I feel for him, but he has to maximize the positivity in his life, and now even more than he did before. So I agree with you. Sinjin, look at your beautiful bride. Come on, be better. All right, our final couple in Come On, we're going to go to Strikes Back. Our favorite character, Cody, me and you, Big Ed, Easy Ed, right from San Diego. I actually, spoiler alert, I drove to San Diego the other day, and I just was looking for him. I've DM'd him. I was going to buy a cameo from him because we have to get him on the podcast sooner rather than later. But this just fit for me. He had so many great quotes on that show, and if people did not watch it, put it on demand. To me, this is the best show that 90 Day Fiance has ever done. Cast members watching themselves and then reading tweets. So it's different than Pillow Talk. Reading tweets and clapping back at who insults them. Phenomenal. Wow. Phenomenal. So here's some of the quotes that Easy Ed had when he was striking back. Quote, when he's a photographer, so they showed a picture of him taking a picture. He goes, don't I have nice fingernails? Somebody told me that once, that I have nice fingernails. He said, some people called me a young Patrick Swayze. And they did show pictures of him when he was younger, and He was in much better shape than he is now. But Patrick Swayze, He says, I spent $5,000 on Rose, his young girlfriend who we went to the Philippines and completely screwed the pooch on that. So Rose is also clapping back. She hears him say that. She holds up some underwear and she says, in an accent that I'm horrible at, how much does underwear cost? Is this $5,000? Oh, my God. I died laughing. Ed is a walking show by himself, and he just can't get past his mouth.
Well, and I'll tell you what, my favorite quote from that, and the reason that I got a haircut today, was to look as good as Ed. And I don't think I'm going to go as far as putting mayo on my head, but for Ed, if it's good enough for his BLT, it's good enough for his hair.
That's the quote of the year. That is the quote of the year. I actually started thinking how disgusting it would be to have the mayonnaise. Now, I may never eat a BLT again because every bite you're thinking about the mayonnaise that Ed put in his hair. And boy, did people at home have a Twitter fest with him on the mayonnaise. One person said, there's a thing called conditioner. Why don't you try that? He's like, wait a second. And then he said your quote, it's good enough for my BLT, it's good enough for my hair. But after all these quotes and after everything Big Ed has done, he deserves a big-time 90-day hour wait. Come on!
Coach, our favorite segment, Rapid Fire, one word.
I like it. Let's go.
They're looking to move back to America, but they want to live with Paul's mom. Coach, one word.
One word for me, pathetic. For years now, I'm not talking a couple of years, for years, his mother's been sliding him money. He decided to date Karini from another country. She doesn't even want to come to America, but she's willing to support her husband because they have a baby together. But he calls his mother in this episode, and he's like, could we stay with you for a little while? And I'll give his mother a lot of credit. She said, you know what? It is high time, because he's over 30 years old. She goes, it's time for you to stand on your own 2 feet. Here's what I'll do. I will get you a hotel room for a few days when you get back here. But under no circumstances are you going to live with us. Paul is one of those guys that needs positive reaffirmation. He's always asking Karini, do you love me? Do you love me and the kid? All these things. Just step up and be a man. Step up, take care of your business, take care of your kid, and take care of business, and stop wanting your mother and your parents to take care of you. My one word, pathetic.
Well, damn right, Coach. But moving on along to Kalani and Asuela, they wanted to go on a romantic evening out alone. And they chose axe throwing. Coach, one word.
My one word is creative. And just to be clear, Kalani wanted the romantic date. Asuela is, well, he's the type of, he's almost like a child, but he's 24, 25. When you talk to him, it's like he's like a teddy bear, and it's hard to dislike him. But he's homesick, and they wanted some together time. So she's all excited. She's dressed up. She's in the car, and she looks at him and goes, I'm giddy. Do you know what that means? He goes, no. She goes, yes. He goes, why would you say no if you know what it means? And then he pulls in. He's all excited. And they're at an axe throwing place. And they actually had a very, very good time. But during the night, he gets the guts to ask her to go back to Samoa. Apparently, tickets to Samoa are $3,000. And then they have to get a hotel. And she's like, wait a second, that would be all of our savings. And on top of that, apparently his parents are always calling, asking for money. Because if you make it in the United States, you've made it, even though he's working part-time. She goes, we have to stop giving your parents money. We're not taking money with us. And so I'm anxious to find out how this is going to work, because they have 2 kids now. And I feel like she's got 3 kids when dealing with him. And this, although I liked it, it's just a little Band-Aid. My one word, it was creative.
Well, moving on along to Angela and Michael. Now, Angela's mother is sick. She has complications with her health. But Angela doesn't care. She takes a trip to Nigeria. Coach, one word.
My one word is heartbreaking. This was hard to watch. Angela takes care of her mother full time. Her mother very, very ill, and there is a chance that at the time that this was taped, and I don't read the spoilers online. I don't read the information. I don't want to spoil it for me. And she was devastated doing her confessional interview because the producer asked her, "Do you feel like your mother could die while you're gone?" And she couldn't even answer the question. She was so distraught over the thought of her mother not being there when she gets back. But she also says, there comes a time in your life where you have to do what you have to do to be happy. She's 54 years old. She's got a man in Michael, pretty good dude. And she feels like, just like Jenny does, and we didn't even bring Jenny up in this entire episode because her and Sumit did nothing. They did nothing this week. You don't get into the show if you did nothing. But Angela, I feel for her. She's got a big personality. All she wants is to be loved and loved back, but she's got the mother issue. So for me, hopefully it ends up well, and Mom's there when she gets back. But for this episode, my one word, it was certainly heartbreaking.
Coach, Avery did this entire show with her eyes looking the color of your Coach logo and the color of our 90-day logo. Red, high as a kite. Coach, what is your one word for Avery's love of cannabis?
My one word is inspiring. Inspiring to us all. I've often thought, and I would never do it, but I've often thought, what would I look like and sound like if I was high as a kite doing Sports Center or any other show? I think it would be fun, but then your career would be over. She doesn't care. But now that it's accepted and it's legal in most states, certainly here in California, it's no big deal to have marijuana or use it. And a lot of leagues have just said you go ahead because there's a lot of good things. She puts it on salads. She puts it on anything that she can eat. She puts it on. And then she's just pounding food the entire episode. I would listen to a high Avery any day of the week. It's inspiring, which is my one word, for her love of cannabis and her ability to still speak intelligently while she was higher than a kite. Damn. And that, my friends, was one word. All right, Cody, it's come that time of the show where we got to wrap it up. We've got a busy week. We've got a lot going on. Where can people see you? I know you got several different things going on. Kind of plug your stuff a little bit.
Sure. So you can find me on Instagram at Cody Merrow, CODYMERROW. Same thing on Twitter, except I got a little underscore in between them, but I am in contact with the person who owns the Twitter handle to get the right handle. Soon to be verified at Cody Merrow on all platforms. And of course, share the 90 Day Our Way podcast.
And you can also catch us on our other brand new podcast, Follow the Money, the hottest podcast in the sports betting world, finance, stocks. You can't beat it. Tune into that on Apple, on Spotify, and also Google Podcasts this week as well. Little teaser next week on this show. We're going to have a full update on Jenny and Sumit. Jenny has arrived in India. She is ready to marry Sumit, but he better have those divorce papers, or as she says, it's over. That's a professional tease. That's going to do it for episode 3 of 90 Day Our Way. For the kid, I'm the coach. Have a great week. Be safe. And we'll see you right here next week because that's what we love to do. See ya.